See everything okay, Marc, on my side? Excellent. Okay, good. Good morning, everybody. We're just going to wait a minute, see the people joining the call. So we're just going to let that run for another minute or so, and then we'll begin. Okay, everyone, I think we'll begin. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar, Edge versus Cloud, where your industrial data should run. It's going to be our final webinar of the year, and it's going to be a really good one. There's been a lot of conversation around AI this year, as everybody knows. More importantly, there's been a lot of questions and sort of ideas around how to run AI at the edge. So that's really going to be the focus today. So I'm glad everybody's here. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful event. There is a ability to ask questions here, so pop any questions you have into the Q&A chat module there in the Teams, and we're going to begin. So the agenda today, what is Edge AI? Why run AI at the edge? How Edge AI works? We're going to go over two very high-profile use cases that our customers are using, and then, as I mentioned, a live Q&A. It's also being recorded, so those of you who are multitasking, we will share a copy of the webinar as well with you after the event. So let's jump in. Let's start with our two speakers, Marc and Dave. Marc, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. I'm Marc Dekker here. I'm the VP of Customer Success here at Litmus. So really excited here to be with you guys today and talk about AI at the edge.
Thanks, Marc. Dave, over to you.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, Dave McMorran, Field CTO here at Litmus, and been with the company for about 6 years now. Long background in manufacturing and automation, and excited to talk about some of the new technology and some of the things that we're seeing out there in the market, in the field, and in manufacturing around AI. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And I'm Bill, head of marketing, 20 years B2B software. Again, really excited and passionate about what we're doing here at Litmus, Industry 4.0 in general. So yeah, just really excited to be here. Thank you. So always like to start with, what are the two biggest things that we're seeing in AI that our customers are coming to us to help them solve? And the first one being activating AI. And really, this is this concept of sharing contextualized data in a predictable and consistent way. We talked about this on our previous webinar. And that's a really, really big thing that we do and that our customers are coming to us to solve. And then second is scaling AI. And this is really the deployment and the managing and the scaling of that data ops foundation across multiple sites. And really, our customers that are coming to us are trying to do this at 5+ sites. Last webinar, again, we talked about customers scaling 50, 60, 70 sites, in 3, 6, 12 months type thing. So activating AI, sharing that data, and then scaling AI across multiple sites. Those are the two biggest things that we've been sort of specializing in here at Litmus. And just context, because we're going to get into some concepts, just sort of level setting on our technologies, right? So if you think about our data ops or edge data platform, that's Litmus Edge. That's the green box on the left. And it does everything from connectivity to contextualization to running edge applications or AI at the edge. We have a new MCP server that we launched this year. And again, we're seeing lots of traction and use cases for that as well. We have UNS, Unified Namespace, and this really is our data governance platform, which allows you to share data with the enterprise in a secure, safe, and predictable way. And then finally, for scale and orchestration and centralized management from a single point of control, we use something called Litmus Edge Manager. And it's the combination of the collection of these products all working together in harmony. And that really is what creates this wonderful sort of data ops foundation or edge data platform for AI, digital transformation, and other things. And if you think about what's been happening this year, everyone from manufacturing to oil and gas to energy, they've all been asked to figure out how to use AI to improve operations. And some are way ahead of the curve, and some are still early stages. And really what's exciting about today is the concept of sending data northbound to some kind of Google or Azure or Databricks environment and doing AI in the cloud is common, and most people know about this. What we want to talk about today is really how to leverage AI at the edge. And this is the first time we've really gone really loud with this. We've been doing this a lot with our customers, but we're just really excited to finally bring this story to the market. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to start with Dave today. So Dave, why don't you talk about some of the things that have happened that have now made AI on the shop floor possible?
Thanks, Bill. So there's a few things that have happened. It's been around technology. It's been around learning. It's been around understanding what LMs can do. Right, we're on a journey with this, but from a standpoint of an architecture or hardware, right, you've got GPUs that are now available, to people like an NVIDIA DGC or DGX Spark, for example, where those are now accessible to people that haven't really been either available or easy to implement from that standpoint. So the ability to run a GPU in-house to do that on your own infrastructure is now actually affordable and a little bit easier to do. It's not saying it's cheap, it's just more affordable than it was. The other thing that's happened is you've got these LLMs that are being built that are being open sourced, right? And not just open source from somebody in their garage making it. I'm saying open source from standpoint of like Google is releasing an open source of Gemma, or Meta is releasing Llama or Mistral, or all these other models that are open source that you can then deploy at the edge. So you're starting to see that the ability, that technology, it's not a huge lift to get a GPU running on-prem, running Olama to then run multiple model, single model or multiple models of an LLM on-prem to start running this AI at the edge. And we'll get into why those people are doing it that way as well. So it's really just become that the technology and the hardware has really advanced and become affordable and easier to implement at the edge. So that's why we're starting to see some of that happen now at the edge.
And Dave, I think just jump in there too. What we're also seeing because of that is a lot of experimentation that can now happen at the edge and at the plants to really see how and where AI can be used.
Right, right. Like that's the journey we're on, right? We're all trying to figure that out. Like where, I was using AI, a year ago was more like a Google, I was treating it like a Google search, where now I'm writing much more elaborate prompts to, help me with my day-to-day stuff or what we've done. I mean, even at Hanover last year where we created AI models to do some interesting things, and we were just starting back then when we did that.
Yeah. Yep. Great. So let's talk about how we think about edge AI. So there's a lot of definitions, a lot of terminology, a lot of ways you can deploy AI or think about or act on AI. But let's talk about sort of how we're seeing it and how we sort of enable. Marc, let's start with you.
But I think what we're seeing really is, again, as Dave alluded to, more of a personal approach. And when I say personal, I mean like a very plant-specific approach to using AI for specific machines through using small language models and some large language models running at the edge. A lot of that is around specific use cases. Like vision is a big one that we see being used a lot now to make more better decisions, not necessarily better, but a lot faster, a lot more cohesive. So the opportunities there that the plants are seeing are really trying to bring what has been traditionally done at a corporate level, but bringing it now down to the shop floor. And in cases where they don't want to send data up into the cloud, this is a great way to get the power of AI and so protect your security and your air gapped interests at a local level with the benefits that you can get.
Yeah, and to add to that, Mark, I think, there's still some concerns, I think, about people letting some of that IP out on the floor, or cybersecurity's concerned about intrusions into the floor by using cloud-based LLMs, which not everybody's that way. Some are okay with it, some are not, right? We've got customers that do both. It's really more of like, what is your cybersecurity okay with? And then there's also the IP, the privacy is like, do you want to be, I don't think anybody's using a public, well, maybe I shouldn't say anyone, but like people are a
Most
little
people are
wary
not,
of using a public facing LLM because now you can be training it and fine tuning it for other people, your competition potentially. So they want to narrow that down into their own private LLM. And then it's just a matter of where I'm running it. Am I running it in the cloud because I want, I need the compute power. I need, I'm okay, cybersecurity is okay with it versus actually running at the edge where you're looking at saying, I want to run at the edge because I don't want the security aspect of it. I want to keep that data private, right? I want to keep it local because of those reasons. And then we start getting into things like latency and some other things as well that we'll talk about here shortly.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dave, let's kick with those themes, right, that you were just hitting on, sort of why run at the edge versus the cloud. And again, we're not saying one is better than the other, but they're saying there's clear use cases and reasons why you would choose one over the other. So let's you and Mark break them down one at a time.
Sure. I mean, the first one I look at is latency and speed, right? If you're in a manufacturing environment, you do not, and you're trying to use AI to make a deterministic type of approach, or not deterministic, but a fast decision on a process. You don't have time and that latency from sending all the data to the cloud, getting the prompt, getting the queue to make the prompt, getting a response back, getting through that network. That just takes time, and you might not have that. You can't afford that time in your process, right? Versus what we traditionally do with like, here's my data and we have time to make an analysis on it later, right? So this is more of like, I need a decision made quickly. So I want to move that AI to the edge to reduce that latency because I'm trying to make decisions in, milliseconds, not in tens of seconds. So that's the one of the big reasons to move that to the cloud or to the edge, excuse me.
Nice. Yep, keep
Right.
going with security, and then we'll hand it off.
Security
Yeah,
and
hand it off
privacy.
to
Yeah,
Mark.
security and
Yeah.
privacy we touched on, right? So security, there are cybersecurity saying, hey, we're not going to let data, layer two, OT data is not going to the cloud at all. Maybe you have to go to the layer three to get the data up, or maybe they don't want the IP out there. They don't want to open up that, expose that. So they're from a security standpoint, they want to keep it, in-house, on-prem, not expose that vulnerability, that risk factor to their operations. And then privacy, don't want to use a public model because I don't want to be fine tuning or training a model for my competition to use. So they want to keep that private model and then isolate that locally, right? So that's the other aspect of it. Offline and air gapped, if you lose your cloud connectivity, I mean, that's always been an issue, a concern. The backhoe tears up your T3 pipe to the cloud and you're down. If that is critical to your operations, you want to keep that on-prem, right? You might want to have that on-prem because it's air gap for security reasons, but just basically being more resilient to your operation and have it run at the edge. The other reason, like lower and predictable costs, now you're not you're not having to have, you can have a predictable cost because now you know what a GPU costs. You can download, you know what your compute cost is locally. You can manage that. You don't have the cost of transmitting the data, right? Getting the data to the cloud as a cost, or storing that data in the cloud at a cost. You can have more predictable cost structure at the edge. And again, not saying not to do it in cloud either. Like this is it's not a only do it at the edge. It's just a question is about picking the right place to do it at the edge and why people run AI at the edge. And then strategic control and flexibility, meaning that, hey, if I pick a cloud vendor, and what happens if I want to move cloud vendors, later, or I pick an LLM and I want to change my LLM, this gives you a little more flexibility to switch easily and maintain that on-prem and not be reliant on a single vendor or a single cloud provider that way. So giving you some more strategic stuff to do as well.
Yep. Marc, let's take your perspective. But again, you help our customers deploy. Talk about some of the reasons why they're preferring to just keep operations at the edge in general. Touching on some of these points.
I think a lot of it has to do with the last box. Plants like some of the strategic control. They like the flexibility as well. This gives them that. It gives them a sandbox where they can experiment. It gives them an opportunity to try out different things and kind of be a bit autonomous when it comes to how they want to use this technology. So a lot of times there's a discrepancy between what maybe the corporate likes to do or wants you to do versus what you feel as a plant you want to be doing. So by driving the ability to kind of use AI in a way that suits your needs, this is a very nice way to do it without really affecting the enterprise. And again, not that you want the plant to go rogue, but you do want the experimentation to come bottom up a lot of times. So the things that the plant will find out based on the engineers working at the plant, they're very personal problems that they're trying to solve. This will drive the innovation upwards, which is always better for adoptability across all your different plants because it came from the grassroots. So I think that's a really, really big reason I see it coming from our customers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Marc. I mean, we've talked to several customers that are coming to us and saying, I've been mandated to leverage AI for my operations, and I have no idea where to start.
Right.
And if you think about trying to go and get through all the firewalls into a public cloud and all the risk that's associated with the public model, right, that's going to get shut down right away. It'll take you forever just to get approval to get that done and set up your infrastructure to get that done versus saying, hey, you could actually run this locally, get a hold of a GPU and run this locally, run a model, and basically do something very quickly that is saying, hey, we're doing some AI, we're on the journey we started, and it's being a lot easier. So I'd actually add a sixth box here now, which is speed, right? I didn't think about that, but that's
it is.
There was a hole for you, Dave. There was a hole there for you to call it out.
It's fine. There's a spot for it. We can put it in.
Insert thought here. Yeah, no, it's good.
Speed of deployment.
Yeah. What you get though too, like is again, you get the plant being able to experiment without the cost of a cloud model, right? Every time you send data to that cloud model, you're going to be using tokens, you're going to be using cost. This gives you a chance to actually experiment, let the plant run how they think they want to run, compare those results across different plants, and then kind of pick and choose and see what works best, right? So it's a very collaborative method.
I think it also gives you that kind of, we see this all the time, not just in AI, but in general, is people are experimenting on that ground up, like you're talking about, proving the value, showing that to, management to say, yeah, green light this. And maybe it does move to cloud. We're not saying to not use cloud. It's not an either or, it's a both. And just depending on how you want to approach it.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to add just one thing, and then we'll move to the next topic. And again, right, we're painting the story around an AI narrative or using AI at the edge. But again, right, if you think about what Litmus does, our ability to provide that unified data foundation is the core of what we do, and it's that data ops workflow or data ops journey, right, from collection through to contextualization through to pushing that data into some kind of service. And AI is just a benefiter of that data ops flow that we do so well. So Marc, why don't you kind of walk us through that part of the journey, right? Just setting up that core foundation, that services, edge AI use cases, or other localized or cloud use cases.
Thanks, Bill. I think the core message again is you really need to have a good solid base, right? So all that data you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen, you really want to get that in a nice model format, like we talked about in our last webinar, and add the context so that when it is being used by the AI model, it's consistent across your machines, across your lines, across your plant, and then onward across all of your plants across the enterprise. So being able to have the model first approach, the contextualized approach, that helps immensely when your models are going to start to use that runtime data and that historical data to give you the insights, to give you the decision-making capability on what's going on with that machine in more of a real-time methodology.
Mm-hmm. Dave, anything you wanted to add to the story here?
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about, because we kind of have different methods of leveraging AI in the platform. When we first started, we basically added an AI node to our analytics and allow you to point it to, whatever model you want, where that model is in the cloud, public facing, private facing in your own. It could be in your data center. It could be running on the edge itself. It could be running anywhere. It's just basically pointed to the model. And one of the we did that because it was quick for us to implement. It made sense for us because the data we're collecting at the edge became the context. You added the prompt. You could then be a very event-driven, automated kind of AI prompting to a system. So things like my OE is dropped or I have a machine fault. What does that mean? What do I do? And kind of give you that automated path to data to AI models. But not only that, it allowed you to sequence your data. So you could go and you could get an error and then go to one model and say, hey, what does this error mean? And be very specific about it. Take that prompt, that goes into the next prompt to say, hey, I've given this data and I want to go make another API call to a different, or I want to make another prompt to another model that's more tuned to, how do I fix this, right? So you can start daisy chaining your prompting and using the context from the first prompt into the second one. So that's really still a very valid method to use and start automating some of your AI. Soon after that, we created our MCP server, which now has access, and we'll show us another slide, but basically using an MCP server to not only do the configuration, so you could use something like Claude, point it to their MCP server and start doing deployments and configuration of Litmus Edge, but you also start having access to historical and real-time data to start using that as context and making decisions on it as well. So there's a couple paths in general. The AI is around the data itself that we're generating, and the AI can be used around configuration and getting information from the edge infrastructure itself.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about one more piece, Marc. Sorry.
Yeah.
And again, right, it's if customers or organizations are trying to sort of build this thing today, right? How do they do it? If again, right now, we're talking about Litmus as a unified platform, right? It brings collection, it brings contextualization, storage, et cetera, et cetera. Just talk about sort of the management and enabling of this thing. Just again, piecemealing technologies together versus sort of dropping in a solution that's sort of purpose-built for end-to-end ops.
Yeah, I think that's kind of key here that we can bring specifically that foundational data layer that we've already talked about. That sets you up for the two paths that Dave was talking about. When you have that, if you start to string different models together, depending on how you want to solve your problems, being able to understand the data, like traditionally before you had AI and such, you would have a dashboard or you would have an alert and you would act upon that, right? The opportunity you have now is not just to know about a problem or to sense a problem, it's what you should be doing about it and when you should be doing something about it, and then coordinating kind of the pieces to help you get that problem solved. So it's a more holistic approach. And when you have, again, the contextualized data that forms the basis of the process data that you're going to use for that analysis, that really sets you up for using those integrated models by daisy chaining them or using them individually. It gives you that whole opportunity to not just know about a problem, but to actually fix it, solve it, and coordinate all the actions around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go one layer deeper. So again, highly simplified about the collection, contextualization, etc. This is a little bit more complex, but it really explains the data journey that goes in from ingestion all the way to sort of servicing those models and whatnot. So I'm not sure who wants to go first. Dave, why don't you take a crack at this one first? Breaking it down
Sure.
to one, two,
So
three. Mm.
yeah, if you start looking at the data ops, and we've been in this kind of, like the collection, connecting, collecting, adding context part of that data, like we've been doing that for years. That's not new for us, but that really ties very nicely into using AI, because now we're talking about, the multimodal fusion of vision systems, text files, documents, real-time data, historical data, bringing all that together to start leveraging that. So you see we have our message broker connection there, right? So we're going to grab that data, we can start adding context from multiple sources. That's that multimodal part. Then we can feed that to our message broker. The message broker is providing that real-time data to the MCP server, or the MCP server is actually getting access to that. And then we also can take that same data, put it into our localized time series database, right? So this is all within the Litmus Edge, and then basically allow the MCP server to have access to real-time data and historical data, right? And that's all contextualized from step one in the data ops side. So now that MCP server, you can take that, you can run that as a container within the Litmus Edge. You can run that as a container externally, however you again want to do it and whatever makes sense for your architecture. That AI model running at the edge on a GPU could then be prompted to say, point it to that MCP server and start asking it prompting questions, right? So you can set up something, create your own GBT, do a prompting kind of setup, more of a co-pilot type of mode, start making it more event driven where something happens and then trigger the AI prompt, like we were talking about in analytics. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. In this particular one, if we wanted to say, hey, the operator wants to analyze OEE, this is a demo we did for Hanover a year ago, right? What we're doing is we're going to the AI model and say, hey, go analyze my OEE in my plant. It is going down to the MCP server, going into the time series database where that OEE data was all stored, and starts giving you prompts like, line two, machine threes, quality is low and it's been this low for this long, those kinds of responses that are coming back. And it's really relatively easy to set that up and start getting some answers on it. And that was with a very basic prompt. I think as we learn, like I said, we're on a journey. As you start getting better with your prompt and and getting more of that data in and structuring that data in a proper way, the AI starts working better. You can start getting more information, because I can take that prompt, I can feed it to another prompt and say, okay, now what? What should I do on it? Like those kinds of things. So it could be prompt generated, more like a co-pilot. It could be event driven, like we're doing in analytics. There's a lot of different ways you can do that with that. So basically, again, starting from the beginning, step one, organize your data, collect it, adding context, getting it into the broker, getting it into the time series database with that analyzed data, connecting to the MCP server, prompting the AI model to go to that MCP server and grab that data, get your response, and then that output can go to a dashboard to the operator. It could go into another database for storing data, whatever you want. And then you could also integrate that LLM to other MCP servers. So if you want to have
Yep.
like a
Yep.
SharePoint MCP server that is now looking at all your manuals for your machinery, you now can actually integrate that and have that, other sources of data, not just what we're providing, but sources in your entire factory and your entire plant, and get that AI output. So, kind of generic like way of thinking about it, but there's definitely, like sky's the limit here on what you can do with it.
Yeah, Dave, I think you said two really interesting things. Well, you said a lot of interesting things, but the two pieces I picked out really I want just to touch upon was you have choices that you can make now, and you can use this kind of a setup in two very distinct ways. You can write your own prompts, and you can use the AI models to kind of dig deeper on things that you're seeing personally. But I think the real power comes, as you mentioned, when you do the event-driven prompts. So when you see specific events, or when you start to train a model to recognize certain events, then start to ask these questions via prompts and kind of dig deeper. And I think in the past, that was a very manual process. You would watch the dashboard, you would get a text on your phone that the temperature was high. But when you set this up now, you can look out for those events. You can basically run the whole process through these models, and then coordinate the fix or analyze the fix, and then any physical pieces that need to be done, that's where the human factor can now start to work a lot faster, rather than spending a lot of time trying to analyze and get the right people together. When I've talked to some customers, that's one of the big pieces that they were looking to do, where a maintenance person gets an alert, but then they've got to talk to 3, 4, 5 other people to figure out kind of what's going on. Perhaps this type of a scenario now allows that to happen behind the scenes, I'll say, and you're presented with those findings, so you can actually start the work immediately, rather than spending another 10, 15 minutes of just doing the analysis. And I think that's where the experimentation comes in, where you can start to do that in parallel. So you can still do your traditional way with the alerts and the analysis and dashboards, but as you start to mix in the AI, you kind of get the best of both worlds, right? You get the human factor, and then you can test it against what AI is doing, and hopefully eventually the AI gets to that level. And now you feel more confident about how you can integrate that into your line processes, your standard operating procedures. I think that's the journey you talked about earlier, and that's the experimentation piece that plants are starting to crave.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking that way, Mark, I agree with you completely, because if you look at the journey that probably everybody's taken with AI, you're starting, you treated it like a Google search to begin with,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah,
a web search. And then as you understand what it can do and its capabilities and what other people are doing about prompting and those kind of things, you start actually understanding how it works and how it, can be used better, right? And we've talked about this, right? It maybe it's like it's not necessarily that I can't do the analysis, get an Excel spreadsheet and do the analysis. The idea is like instead of spending 2 days doing it, I can do it in 3 minutes. I can be way more efficient with
Mm-hmm.
that now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And then
yeah,
I also look at it as like, do I really want to have AI? Do I want to just throw a bunch of data into a database and say, hey, go calculate my OEE? That's kind of an expensive way to do that. I mean, it can do it, but is that really the best use case for it? I'd rather have my AI go look at my OEE trends and find and do more root cause analysis and speed that process up than it would be to do a simple calculation.
yeah. It's not the what anymore, it's the why that
Yeah,
just brings
yeah.
you in, right?
Yeah.
Which is really
And
cool.
I use it. One of the things I do with AI now is like when I'm like doing research on stuff, I can usually come up with 3 or 4 ideas of like what I want to, talk about or had knowledge of or could have researched on my own. What I also like about it is it tells me a bunch of stuff I didn't think about.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I really like about it. And I think we can use that in manufacturing to say, hey, what's causing this quality problem? And you're like, it's probably that belt. But it might go and say, well, it's the belt and it's this temperature and, the manual or whatever data you're getting from it to get that answer, I think is really the power that we can find and
Mm-hmm.
leverage short today. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not a future decision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mark, Dave, let's sort of reframe just for a second some of the things you've said. So when we think about deploying something like this. We're talking about a lot of pieces, a lot of components, et cetera, et cetera. Let's break down getting started, right? Again, we talk about setting up that core foundation. What's it really take to start turning on something like this? Again, we've got our customers today, Marc. Again, we deploy across dozens of sites. That data foundation. Just talk about the speed, right? Again, it's not complicated. AI is not complicated. Deploying is not complicated. The technologies are. Just explain the simplicity of all this, because again, the topic is complicated at times, but the spirit of delivering this. Let's talk about that.
Well, I think it is pretty straightforward. You can set up your Litmus Edge. You can connect to your devices. You can pull that data in, and then you can run your model locally on that instance, right? And then you can prompt it using our analytics tool to basically ask it questions about your data for specific devices. You can get that set up like in, I would say, hours, right?
Yeah.
And if you're already having it run in your plant, we can show you how to get that model running like now, right? You download it, you get a llama running, you plug in your open source model, and you send it prompts. That's a very basic, simple use case example that can happen very, very fast. I would even say you don't really need a lot of GPU for that. You could probably just run it on your VM as is, just like you'd run it on your laptop, right? So obviously, when you get deeper and deeper into it and get heavier and heavier, then you may want to kind of re-architect. But from a very basic standpoint, you can start now.
Yeah.
And so we've seen some of our customers, some of our more adventurous ones do that. And again, that's the journey that they'll get on. So they don't have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars around architecture. They can just start and see how it works, see how it feels, see where it fits, see where it doesn't fit, and then kind of build that case for how they want to approach it.
So to give you an example on that too, Bill, I know in our office several months ago, we got a hold of an NVIDIA Spark device, GX. I always get that mixed up in the letters, DGX Spark. But our team got a hold of that, right? They had already downloaded the model, their LLM model, right? They installed Litmus Edge on it, took about 5 minutes. They uploaded the model to the Spark, pointed it to it, and we had AI in a box, connected to PLCs. And like, we're pretty good at that stuff, so it's probably under an hour. But like to Mark's point, it was in a couple of hours for a more of a novice user can do that. So it is not a huge lift in my opinion, which is just going to help everybody get access to AI and start quickly, and not, like I said earlier, not worrying about opening up firewalls and cascading data and setting up infrastructure. This is like sitting in a box, on your layer 2, not touching the cloud at all, and you now have AI. So it can be quick.
Yeah, excellent. I think just one more point, and then we'll get into the two or three use cases. Again, when we talk about AI, there's the centralized use cases, which are sort of those larger builds, those larger deployments where OT is being asked to, serve data into some kind of cloud AI infrastructure versus the localized. So again, one of the big differences for edge versus cloud is our localized use cases were sort of centralized or generalized, calculating OE across multiple facilities. I don't know, Dave, why don't you kind of start just the difference or why or the hows around localized versus centralized?
Well, again, we've talked about this architecture already, but again, keeping this, this could live all within a Litmus Edge itself. Like I said, like an NVIDIA Spark, this could all live in the same box, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to. It could also be your
Sorry, Dave. There we go. Sorry about that. There you go.
It could be, it could all run in the same box. We have customers that are, they put their LLM in their data center, and they're pointing their edges towards that as well. So it doesn't have to live on board, but that LLM is actually used for other things as well. So it's not very specific to the OT space. but it's part of the manufacturing goal. But the point is you can running it at the edge doesn't mean inside a Litmus edge. Running at the edge is meaning not running it in cloud, running it on-prem somewhere. Again, for the same reasons we've already talked about.
Yeah.
So the idea of having Litmus Edge there and running the AI is to be able to leverage the tool, the MCP server and the analytics nodes to go prompt data to create that data or that AI prompting flow, if you want, um, for that localized AI, right? It's leveraging that technology and doing that quickly and securely and reducing latency and all those other things and pulling that data in from PLCs, sensors, text files, databases, contextualized data, pulling that all in through Edge AI and then letting the LLM actually get access to other information that's more company specific, manuals, processes, QA tests, whatever you want, whatever the use case is.
Yeah, I think Bill, what I'm seeing too is when a company is really focused on edge AI, they use that to turn their production data into decisions. And when they're using the cloud AI, they're using more of a global data approach from multiple plants to make more strategic decisions, more strategies for how they want to change over time or where they should be focusing for new technology or new equipment or that kind of more of a overarching problem solving. So
Yep.
that's where I'm seeing the difference between edge AI and cloud AI is again the edge AI is very specific and very personal to the plans to make decisions day to day that you need to make. Should I speed this conveyor? Should I slow this conveyor?
Yep.
Should I
Yep.
make this part? Should I make that part? And then that information eventually filters up, and the cloud AI will give you more of the strategic overview of how those decisions are affecting the performance of the company versus what's going on at a specific device or line.
Yep. And there it is. And that's sort of where we were trying to get to, right? In the last webinar, we talked about that sort of centralized AI deployment model, right? Where multiple factories are working together to send data into those AI environments and do that analytics for benchmarking or whatever that may be. But then there's also those edge use cases that we support. And that's really these two webinars, why they work well together. These two storylines is we service the greater AI data strategy as well as support those edge use cases or those localized use cases. And that's really the whole thing of Litmus. And I think that was the important point that we wanted to bring here today.
Bill, I think just to touch on that one more time,
Yeah.
the real importance there too is the data structure and the data models that you're going to use. You want to be consistent. The more consistent you are with how your data is presented and used, contextualized at the edge for your AI there, you really want it to be the same when it goes up to the cloud so they match. So there's no effort, there's no difference between what the cloud AI is trying to do. Like they're seeing the same picture, the same context, the same, lay of the land. If they're drastically different, you're probably going to get drastically different results, or they may not be compatible. So you really want to be structured the same way. That's one of the foundational pieces that we talked about in our last webinar. That's so important when you start to say, what am I going to use edge AI for? What am I going to use cloud AI for? Well, yeah, they're different use cases, but the data, the foundational piece should be the same. And that's what you really get with Litmus.
Yep, well done. Yes, correct. So let's jump into we got two use cases, customer stories today. Marc, why don't you kick us off on the Vision AI use case?
The Vision AI use case.
I know.
Yes. Yeah, so this is the classic case of making decisions locally, right? This is not a strategic thing. So this is something that you want to do on your line that's been done on a specific line where they're doing the seal defect monitoring. Traditionally, in other cases where I've seen this. This can be done, let's be very clear, without AI. I've worked at companies that have done this, and they've built their own vision system. They've built their own code to reject packages or other products based on certain defects that the vision system picks up. What's nice about this is, yes, the vision system does it, but it's the AI piece now that pulls data in from all the other parameters on that line. So it doesn't just say, hey, this packet is no good, and kicks it out. It starts to tell you why. Why was the packet rejected? And it's looking for the parameters that affect quality. In the past, you'd have to look at the packet reject count and say, well, that was pretty high today, and then work your way back and figure out, okay, what were these parameters? And the iterations take a while. What AI gives you is the ability, again, this isn't going to happen on day one, but you can start to feed it different data and structured data. And with your quality data that you can also add into your model, the model will then start to figure out the whys, and in a lot faster way than I could, or Dave could, or you could, or the platform team could, and gives you more suggestions day in and day out as to what the tweaks are. And eventually, what you would hope is that you can make those tweaks as they're needed, not when the line stopped and you're on break or you're on shutdown. So now that's the closed loop stuff we talked about briefly. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that's the holy grail of what a vision system can start to do. Is it's detecting things, it's detecting the nuances of why this, in this case, the seal's not quite right, and using data that is picking up downstream or upstream from the line to start making adjustments.
Yeah, it's going from treating that vision system as a pass fail to now it's pass fail, but here's why it was a pass fail, and start going and giving you, looking at that other data, like you said, Mark, to start saying it's being caused by this, and patterns that you wouldn't see. Like I said, there's patterns you wouldn't see as a human being, are very difficult to see. Again, it's like we were talking about earlier. AI is really helping us from the standpoint of speeding up that time to value, right?
Yes.
But also expanding our knowledge. So it's like, yeah, I got on and off, great, but now why? Or pass fail, but now why? Right? I can start looking at that, and it has access to all this data that would be very difficult for a human to do.
Yes. And this is a classic case of one that you wouldn't really want to run this in the cloud. This is a great one to run as close to that data as possible. This is a very personal model, right? I'll call it that, because it's going to use data from that specific line. It's going to train on that data. It's going to use the specifications of that particular packet, of that particular SKU, right? So this is one where you may have different models running across different lines, because each line will be slightly different, and they'll calibrate over time.
Yeah. And I mean, I've implemented over 100 vision systems in my career, so it's one of these where a lot of times you're constantly having to go back on complex ones and fine tune it and tweak it, and that's the kind of thing that I think AI can really speed that part up as well, and find stuff, find defects that you might not be looking for. So I think it's definitely a classic use case, and that's something we've been using ML and not we, but we've had customers using machine learning models and vision for years, like as long as I've been at the company. So that's not new as a concept. It was just AI is adding a little, as adding more to the discovery and speed and those kinds of things.
What's the term? Is it modal? Is it modal fusion?
Multimodal fusion.
Multimodal.
That's the term.
Yeah. Correct. We have about 12 minutes. Let's jump to the next use case. Marc, why don't you kick us off here? There's a little bit of AI agent work in this scenario as well. So why don't you kind of walk us through traditional versus sort of AI assisted?
Yes, perfect. Again, we touched on this briefly before, and the traditional way is alerting, or you would see a dashboard, or you would get a text, or you would see an end on board flashing that a machine was down, and the operator or the maintenance person would go and investigate and figure out what happened, what was the fault, and do a reset or figure out the root cause. What you can get with an AI assisted analysis, again, is it can look at all the different pieces of data and not just alert you to the problem, but tell you again, it's the why.
Yeah.
Why is that happening? What do you need to do? What's the maintenance procedure, or what's the standard operating procedure to fix this particular problem? And it'll the hope is it will collect all the data that it needs from different areas, rather than the maintenance person having to go do that and talk to maybe the operator or talk to some of the quality people. The agentic AI can pull that all together and present it in a usable fashion right out of the box, so that the maintenance person has everything they need to actually do the fix, do the analysis, and get the machine back up and running as fast as possible. And again, the goal here is, as the model gets better, it predicts it and it makes the adjustments, or it tells you a lot earlier that, hey, during the next downtime, you really need to tweak this, or you need to change that filter, or you need to change that cutter, so that you're not reactive. Now you're super proactive, and you're preventing the downtime rather than reacting to it. Again, this isn't new. This has been around for years and years and years. It's the speed to action. It's the speed to resolution. It's the gathering of more data points to make that analysis better, and removing some of the human thinking and kind of automating how that looks and feels, so the person who's in charge of this fix has a better holistic view of what they need to do.
Yep, I think the other one you were saying, Dave, earlier was, again, the technology has made deploying and building these solutions, these workflows, faster.
Yeah.
Let's touch on that just a little bit, right? Again, it's not new. It's the new technology is enabling faster deployment, building, and creation of all these processes and workflows.
Yeah, I mean, it's true about any technology, right? As it gets more available to people, it starts accelerating and becomes easier to implement and easier to do. So now it's like getting a hold of, the hardware in a GPU is not out of reach, not cheap, but it's not super expensive either. Where, you're not running the IBM supercomputer, Cray supercomputer to try to do AI. Now it's like I can go get a $10,000 GPU and load a model onto it. Okay, so it's becoming more in reach, just like every technology does. And then with the availability of open source models that are getting smaller, right, and they're in the 80 gig type of range, now all of a sudden making it, available to you on-prem is a lot easier to do, or cloud, right, and being available that they can spend $20 a month on ChatGPT and get access to that. So, as an example. So it's just really, I think all these things are coming together that are making this, now possible.
Yep.
And I think we're in this early stage where we're kind of crawling on the AI, especially in manufacturing, because it's so new. There's some people are probably like, I haven't needed it before. Why do I need it now? I said the same thing when I started using AI, but now it's like, ooh, I'm using it every day, and it is really helping me at my role. So I think there's that aspect of this journey that we're on, but we also have, a bunch of younger people, as we attrition out and the workforce in manufacturing, like this is actually opening up the door for some really cool stuff to start happening in the field. So I think it's going to be bringing new ideas to the manufacturing floor that, AI is something that, soon people have grown up with it. Right. It's not that scary or difficult to understand, and start coming up with new ideas on what to do. But I think really just the availability of the open source models and the hardware being accessible to, even a small manufacturer has now really changed the game.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, let's move to the final few, and then we'll open it up to questions. So just a reminder, those listening and joining, put questions into the chat, and then we'll get to them in a moment. Thank you, thank you. All right, so just to summarize, reason to choose the edge. Again, we this one covered it really well: real-time response, data control, air-gapped or secure environment, tight integration and harmony with OT processes, workflows, and use cases, and then security first. Again, it always starts with sort of a unified data ops foundation of some kind. So regardless if you're embarking on AI or not, that unified data platform that spans across all factors for that consistency that Marc talked about so many times before, and that predictable data layer, those predictable models, et cetera, et cetera. So it always starts with that first, and then we move into use cases, AI enabled or not. It's always a 1-2 punch here at Litmus.
I think very simply to put it is, if milliseconds matter and megabytes are expensive, the edge AI is the way to go.
Yeah.
Very well put, Dave. I like that
one. Marc, why don't you close us off? Just sort of high level again, just quick summary on Litmus, and then we'll jump into questions.
Yeah, I could definitely take it home. Foundational, right? You want to be able to connect to that OT data. We have 250 plus pre-built drivers. We can connect to legacy and modern systems. So you name it, we can get the data out. You want to be able to process that data at the source, and that couples right there with the integrate with any AI system. So they're the 1-2 punch you talked about. And then the scalability, right? Being able to deploy very rapidly, get it in, get it working. But it's the management piece on top of that. So especially with AI, guess what you're going to want to do? You're going to change your mind over and over and over again. This is a journey. It's experimentation. You want a way to get those changes, to get those best practices, to get those models across the enterprise without having to slog through it every single time. So the Litmus Edge Manager piece becomes really, really, really important. And then on top of that all, you want to be able to publish the results of what that AI is telling you, not just locally. You want to be able to send the same results to the cloud so that you can get the enterprise view that we talked about, the strategic piece. So the flexibility that Litmus Edge brings you to publish wherever you want to go with a few clicks, right? Add a new integration, the data goes to where you want to go. There's so many benefits to being able to do that rather than having to rewrite something or add another piece of software in to publish it somewhere different.
And you want to add, Dave, before we jump to questions?
No, I mean, Marc covered it, quite well. I think it's not just, hey, I want to do AI. It's all the other stuff. It's setting that data foundation layer, like Marc was talking about, getting that data operations kind of set up, getting that context set up, getting the right data, and then leveraging it in the AI. Because with AI without context is worthless.
I'll say one more piece, Bill, and
please.
Maybe Dave will agree with me, but it's like we've been in this business a long time, myself and Dave, and the one thing that we always say is, we've been doing this for a long time, meaning data has been an integral part of manufacturing since I started back in the 90s. The thing that's changed is everything around the data. The data is still the most important thing. And when you get the data right, you open yourself up to using whatever technology is now available. So the people who had already invested in great data structures and data models and understanding their data in a very concise way are always the fastest to be able to react to whatever comes next. And so now it's AI. But AI needs good, solid data. Just like when you were doing dashboards, you needed good, solid data. Well, when you were doing data warehousing, that's all about good, solid data. So the foundational piece that you get with Litmus Edge sets you up for what's coming next, which you don't really know. And that's the one lesson I've learned over all these years is it's about the data. Like if you don't have the right data, if your data is all over the map and you don't understand it, no matter what the technology is you stack on top of it, it's not going to matter. You have to start at the bottom. You have to get the right data. You have to just get it right so you can understand it and share it where it needs to go. And so I think that's the message here is that's what Litmus Edge brings you. It is the data platform for industrial AI, but it's the platform for industrial everything. It's your foundational piece.
Yep. Very, very well said. All right, let's jump into questions. let's see here. There was the one here. Just one second. Let me just pull it up. Apologies, people. There it is. Agentic AI. Dave, I'm gonna throw this one to you, I think. Discussing agentic AI for automating some of the use cases you described. Does Litmus provide support for agentic AI workflows? I think I'm going to pop to this case study slide and sort of let you just talk a little bit about agentic AI, because I think we covered it here, but we probably did it a little bit soft.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of simulating, like when we first started with our analytics, we were kind of simulating the agentic AI, but it was very fixed, right? It was a fixed prompt. It wasn't like agentic AI where it's doing the next, you're given a goal and all those kinds of things. But now with the MCP server, and depending on what model you, as long as you're using that agentic, AI-based type of LLM, now you can actually start leveraging the MCP server and that agentic AI flow, right? Where it starts to get responses. But I think that's more of a I keep calling it a co-pilot type of method, but it's more of that user working with the data and prompting is like, what do you want to do next versus um, that full-blown flow. But it really depends on what you're trying to do in the use case. Like I said, if it's more of a fixed use case where it's like fault on the machine, what does that fault mean? What do I do? That kind of stuff. That is similar to an agentic AI flow, but it's really more of a fixed one that you can create. So it's kind of it's not quite an agentic AI flow to the question, but it really is. We're really not the AI engine here, right? We are just enabling people to use the AI. So if they can build their own agentic AI flows, then we can be that kind of infrastructure or kind of that access point to the data that we got in the manufacturing floor for an agentic AI flow.
Excellent. Marc, anything to add for the next question? Or
Well, I think just again, what's the most important thing that agentic AI would need to do its job well? Good data, right? To do the job very consistently. So building your own and then using the data from Litmus Edge to feed it, you're going to get the right results, and it's going to be a consistent result across your plant, across your enterprise.
Thank you. Yes, good. Okay, from your recent deployments, what typically becomes the biggest bottleneck? Oh, no, this is correct. Yes, sorry, forget it. Apologies, people. Trying to scroll through all the questions. What are the bottlenecks that customers face at the edge, process related? Hybrid, edge cloud emerging as the dominant, or is it edge only, cloud only? I think some version of this.
Yeah, I think we discussed this earlier. We touched on this earlier, but I think really their fastest path is you get a hold of like, a PC or an IPC with a GPU, wherever that comes from, and start, load your model and be local. Because what Marc can speak to this at greater detail than I can, but the biggest lift that we have with customers when we start talking about getting data from the OT layer up into cloud to do whatever, not just AI, but anything. Like we spend more time on dealing with infrastructure, cybersecurity, firewall rules, getting stuff installed because it takes a village to do that, right? You're talking to IT, you're talking to cybersecurity, you're talking to different people. Then it's like, where is the data? So it's that kind of stuff that I think is really the bottleneck, is that just infrastructure kind of thing where you can, if you get your hands on a GPU, you can go really quickly because it's self-contained.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Marc?
Just I think the other piece on the flip side of that is, what am I going to do with the AI? Where can I use it? How can I use it? And I think that there's always the, do I really need it? And I think, Bill, you mentioned it earlier, like people say we've been doing this for 25 years. Why do I need AI now? So there's a hesitation I see sometimes to say, from the shop floor, like, do I really need this, or is what we have good enough? And I think the answer is everything's good enough. It's like, where do you want to go for efficiencies, and do you want to make your life better, and do you want to make the shop floor more efficient? And I think there's a gradual shift to, again, it's new, right? So there's always that barrier to entry, because people don't think they need it. So I think there's a mental block at times. And I think, again, we've touched on it here, but Litmus can help you at least from smoothing away the other pieces that might be difficult. Now it's more of a, I just got to start, and we're a great place to start and get that journey going.
No, a comment on that, Mark, I just had a thought, is a friend of mine had sent a meme, right when ChatGPT came out and, everybody's all the buzz, so a couple years ago, and everybody's all worried about their job. And the comment he said was, you're not going to lose your job to AI, you're going to lose your job to someone using AI, right? That's who you're going to lose your
Yes.
job to.
And
And
that's a great way to
I'm
put it.
looking at that as you expand that as like, as a manufacturer, you're not going to, lose out to your competitor that's doing the same thing they've done for the next 25 years, but you're going to lose to your competitor that's leveraging AI.
Yes. Yeah. So learn how to use it to supplement what you do to make yourself more efficient,
Right.
and good things will happen.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, let's do one more question because we're past the hour. I'm going to throw it out to Marc. I think this is a good one for you. How to manage multi-AI agents. What if you have 100 plants and lines with the same products running in multiple plants and need ML models pushed down to the different plants? I know we covered this on the last call, but why don't we talk about sort of pushing models down, multiple models to multiple facilities?
Yeah, that's a classic case of scale, right? So
Yeah.
that's where Litmus Edge Manager comes into play. So you load those models into Litmus Edge Manager. That's where you push them down to the different Litmus Edge instances at each of your plants. What's described in that question is one of the fundamental challenges that we see with all of our customers is how do I manage this enterprise monstrosity of different things? And the answer to that is you need a single pane of glass. You need a unified stack. Imagine doing that, having to do that, and you've got a different stack at each plant. That's difficult, to say the least, and probably not sustainable. And it's going to be very what's the word I'm looking for? It won't be standardized. So you're going to get different answers across different plans, and you're going to get different levels of adoption. You're going to get different levels of what model's running at what time. Again, Litmus Edge Manager, that's a great solution to manage all of your models, all of your structures, all of how you're going to do this in one single place, and then everybody gets the benefit of change, which is what's going to happen as soon as you start to do these things. Things evolve. As Dave said at the very beginning, we're on a journey. Journey means you're going to move, you're going to change. If you can't manage that change and manage how it's going to look tomorrow because you've got great ideas from 16 plants, you're going to have a hard time. And when you don't have that unified stack, that change is really, really difficult to manage. And you're going to get factions splintering off because you won't be fast enough to serve them, and you'll get a mess.
Yeah, it's the same response for any kind of scale question we answer, right?
Yes,
New dashboard, new calculation, new data model. The same
Yes.
response on that, and just I mean, that was specifically around ML models, which is a lot more easy to deploy versus an AI, large LLM. But they're training LLMs. That's getting faster too. So
Yes. Yeah.
you do need to keep up on that, and then that gets into the dev prod type of instance, right? Where a new model came out. Let's put that in dev. Let's figure it out.
Try
Let's
it.
create
Yep.
new prompts. Let's teach it. Okay, it works. Deploy it out, right, to
Yep.
the enterprise. So
100%.
Yep. Okay, let's wrap it up. There are more questions. Apologies. What we'll do is we'll frame out all the questions, send the questions and the replay to everyone who was on the call today. Thank you everyone for joining. Two housekeeping things. Dave and Sam, our new VP Product Experience, are kicking off a new podcast series, Litmus Unlocked. Conversations like today. They're going to talk about technology, innovations, best practices, etc. We're going to have guest speakers like Marc and customers and providers. This is going to be a wonderful series. So take a screenshot and then tune into that regularly. And then for those of you who want to get hands on Litmus Edge, we do have a developer edition trial where you can download it and start playing with it. So again, just take a screenshot of this. QR code is there for you. You can use that. And if you want to talk to Dave, Marc, and other experts at Litmus, we're here for you as well. So truly thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Marc. Always great to do work with you too. That's it. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.